Welcome to Psych 303 News. I'm your host, Davis Jones, and I'm here with
your other host, Leo. And today's topic on Psych 303
Welcome to Psych 303 News. I'm your host, Davis Jones, and I'm here with
your other host, Leo Cardenas. And today's topic on Psych 303 News is Ivan Mikhailovich Sechenov. And what was most compelling about this individual was that he was accredited as the founder of Russian psychology and physiology. He was a pioneer of the central nervous system inhibitions, and Ivan Pavlov referred to him as the father of Russian physiology and scientific psychology, and he was considered one of the originators of objective psychology. Moreover, he resigned from St. Petersburg Medico-Surgical Academy in disgust when the academy refused to hire a microbiologist because he was a Jew. Credited as expert in 1964, Sechenov was the first behaviorist of modern times. Now that we know a little bit more, let's go to Davis Jones about historical context.
Take a walk with me and I'll show you. All right, as you can see here, this is a map of Russia in the 1800s. Ivan, he was born in Teoflistan Simbirsk government right outside Moscow, Russia in the year 1829. He lived to be 76 years old and died in the year 1905 in Moscow. His father, Mikhail Alexievich, was a military man with the rank of second major, and his mom, Anisia Yegorovna, was a peasant until she married Ivan's father. Sechenov was the youngest of 8 children. Here are his brothers and sisters there. He had 4 brothers and 3 sisters. And he was lucky, as his father was considered a noble and owned land, meaning he wasn't classified as a serf, as Russia's political system at the time was that of a serfdom. Although he lived a mostly comfortable life and had ample opportunity to study at university, Sechenov lived in a time full of political and civil unrest, as peasants were not happy with their treatment. And in the year that he died, 1905, was actually the year that they started to rebel. And now back to you, Leo.
Thank you, Davis Jones. And now to historical research specialist Dana Benjamin for an in-depth analysis on Ivan Sechenov's personal history.
Thank you, Leo and Davis. Now, starting off with his personal life, compared to many historical psychology figures, Ivan grew up in a stable home structure despite the societal differences of his parents. Now, time skipping a little bit, at the age of 76, Ivan contracted pneumonia in the year 1905. Despite knowing he would die soon, he had no fear in giving up his unfinished discoveries before succumbing on November 15th. This simply shows the dedication that from earlier years never seems to die out for someone so resilient like Ivan despite his passing. Despite that, his profound impact in neuroscience and psychology is very noticeable. Now, he may have grown up in a decent Russian home, but Russia in general at this era was no walk in the park for the scientists that he became. Russian intellects were in constant watch and faced many conflicts from the Tsar and their conservative colleagues, specifically censorship. Tsar Alexander II reigned with the focus of control over the country in 1866. Ivan was accused by that same censorship committee to criminal counts of spreading misinformation, materialism, and debasing Christian morality. We will hear more about this in the later segment. Despite it all, he refused to be run off from Russia and stayed firm, aside from his travels with science in mind. This era of censorship must have fueled Ivan to not give in to the Russian powers, despite being Russian himself, and alongside other colleagues in the same boat. This would show the fighting power of science against oppression from that very same country. Another personal account that may not seem like much was what made him disillusioned with what he thought was his purpose in life, medicine. After retiring from the military, he signed up for the medical faculty in Moscow University. Despite having medical dreams, he claimed that the medical field simply had nothing left for him to discover, since it was just memorization of terms and diagnosis. The effect moved him into realizing that neuroscience might be something for him, and that that moved into psychological advancement and developing a field that let him create and contribute to new theories. It may seem as though Ivan took it upon himself like a mission or a purpose in his life, since none of his other colleagues in the physiological world seem to be taking a step into the mind and understanding our cognitive aspect of the body. This may be why Ivan is seen and has the title as the Russian father of physiology and neurology. Thank you for your time and having me. Now back to Leo and Davis for the rest of this segment.
Thank you, Dana Benjamin. Now on to our all-knowing specialist, Kayleigh Ward, for Sechenov's professional contributions.
Thank you, Leo and Davis, for your kind introduction. As stated, Ivan Sechenov is seen as the father of Russian physiology and neurology, and is also arguably the first behaviorist of modern times, as he wrote the first objective psychology. But what even is objective psychology? All you have to do is just look at the word objective. This kind of psychology only focuses on measurement of behavioral processes or other observable things. We see how this is related to behaviorism. External data is the only thing looked at, not any subjective things like feelings or personal beliefs and biases. To those who practice this, they think it's great because no emotions whatsoever are changing the outcomes of certain experiments and things like that. Sechenov was known to have said, "The physical activity of man finds expression in external signs." However, one of the most notable things he did during his life regarding this work is the essay he wrote titled Reflexes of the Brain. In this essay, he creates the mechanical man. He writes that the brain is a mechanism which, if brought into action by a certain cause, ultimately produces a series of external phenomena, which are expressions of physical activity, and states that physical phenomena becomes a part of a chain machine-like process. So essentially, this step-by-step process allows people to think and allows everything in our bodies to work together as a whole. To sum his ideas up, reflexes consist of these three main parts: afferent activity, central connective processes, and efferent activity. Its publishing raised a lot of controversy in Russia, as Dana talked about for a little bit, and it wasn't even published in English until 1965. But why is this considered so daring? Well, Sechenov basically says that thoughts and emotions are just reflexes. Thoughts to him are just the absence of action in response to a stimuli. In the words of the Russian government who took Sechenov to court, if we really functioned mechanically, even the best of men was absolved of any responsibility for their actions. So, needless to say, they thought that this was a dangerous read for the common man or youth to get a hold of. All in all, Sechenov's work was extremely influential because it claimed that all of our actions were just a result of the environment and the natural reflexes that come from it, meaning no actions were really due to heredity. Thank you.
Thanks, Kayleigh Ward. Now to our time-traveling interviewer, Justin Walker, reporting from 1884 with an exclusive interview with Sechenov himself.
Thanks for being here, even though I traveled back in time. So my first question for you is, how did you envision the future of neuroscience and psychology when you wrote Reflexes of the Brain?
Thank you, Justin. I believe that psychology should be deeply rooted in the physical sciences, particularly physiology and biology. For the future of psychology, I would likely advocate for further exploration of the neuromechanisms underlying all aspects of behavior and cognition. This would involve integrating more advanced neurobiological techniques, such as neuroimaging and genetic studies, to understand how brain activity influences thoughts and actions.
Thank you so much. I thought that question would be fascinating because it could reveal your vision of long-term implications of your work. And for my next question, I was wondering what you thought about the current understanding of the brain's role in mental illness, especially in relation to your ideas on reflexes and the brain's responses.
I'd like to acknowledge the progress made in understanding mental illnesses, but how they could also raise concerns about the complexities that still exist in explaining them. purely in terms of reflexes or physiological responses. I suggest that there is still too much to discover about how the brain's internal mechanisms contribute to psychological disorders.
Thank you so much for your input on that, and I thought that question would be important because it would give you a chance to reflect on the relevance of your theories to modern discussions on mental health and offer a way to bridge the gap into your 19th century work in current neuroscience. Thanks for being you.
Thank you so much, Justin Warr. Thank you for joining us on Psych 303 News Channel. For our next week's edition, we'll be talking about Dr. Reverend Brandon Arbuckle. Thank you guys so much for joining us.